Welcome back, welcome back. Afghanistan, of course, continues to dominate the world's attention. But will there ever be a peaceful outcome? One man who's in a perfect position to tell us is the current year still Nobel Peace Prize winner before President Obama takes over in December, global troubleshooter Martti Ahtisaari. Martti, is Afghanistan insoluble?
I don't think so. I think there is a recognition that that one has to look at the wider region. That's why I have emphasized how important it is to find a solution to Israel-Palestine issue, because it will have a bearing on what happens in Pakistan, what happens in Afghanistan, what happens in Iraq, and the whole relationship with the outside world and Iran. And of course you have to include Syria and Lebanon in that whole complex. But there's an understanding that you have to treat the whole region in a similar fashion, and everything is depending on everything. But the crucial issue is Israel-Palestine issue. Because I can't see how we can have, as a democratic West, a proper relation with the Islamic world if we don't get finally this issue settled.
People are talking at the moment, after your incredible track record of mediation around the world and so on, that you're being talked of as possible next president of Europe. Are you glad about that gossip?
I don't know whether I should, but I said to an old friend of mine that perhaps I should answer if somebody asked me that I should have been annoyed if no one mentioned my name in this connection. But it doesn't mean that I'm enthusiastic about the prospect if that were the case. Look, I can be very candid with you, David. No one has asked me about that. I think there's a wide speculation at the moment, and every one of us knows that my friend Tony Blair is a front runner.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes, and because that's something that the heads of state and government have to be able to agree. Then, as I hope that the Lisbon treaty will be going through, then we have to see who becomes the foreign minister and high representative, where the Parliament, European Parliament, has its say. So I'm perhaps most comfortable in doing what I'm doing at the moment. I'm a chairman of the Independent Commission on Turkey, which keeps me at the moment extremely busy up to the end of this year. And then
that's a point that you've really been passionate about this. You really feel that the European Union has dropped the ball on Turkey.
Yes,
that the opposition from France and elsewhere is counterproductive.
Yes, I'm not asking any favors for Turkey. But I was president when, in '99 in December, when Turkey got the candidate status, and we then watched how Turkey carried out the reforms, and we felt that I and my friends felt that Turkey fulfilled all the criteria. So we produced a new report, our first report in September 2004, and we argued that Turkey had fulfilled the criteria, so let's start the negotiations, and it was so decided.
Because do you think, does the European Union need Turkey more than Turkey needs the European Union? What do you think?
I think it's a sort of marriage that both parties need each other, because Turkey has carried during those, after '99, plenty of reforms. That reform process should continue because it's good for Turkey whether they are members of EU. It's a secular state. It's an interesting state. When you are in Turkey, you realize how people from around Turkey are visiting Turkey on holidays and otherwise. And they see how it is to live in a secular Muslim state. And I think Turkey plays a strategically extremely important role in the region. Economically, it's a gateway to the wider region. You have seen how the direct investments have grown. You have also seen how the economy has been growing 7%.
Yeah.
They have survived the financial crisis, I think, better because the banks went through a reform process in the last process when they had economic difficulties. They have played a politically an extremely important role in Middle East also, when the ceasefire was reached after the events between Israel and Palestine.
You mediated, of course, a lot in the situation in Kosovo between Serbia and Kosovo. That was one of your major assignments and so on. And Vuk Jeremic was here, the foreign minister of Serbia was here last week, and when I said to him at one point, will there come a day when you, Serbia, recognize the new state of Kosovo? And his reply was, no. That was it. Clear and to the point. But do you think that will ever happen, that there will be a peace like that between, I mean, there's not war between them, but I mean, but a peace like that between Serbia and Kosovo?
Yes. I'm sure it
That's
will.
good. Your reply is yes.
Yes.
His reply was no. Yes.
Because look, I very often say that if you look at Europe, the only country that has taken a hard look, perhaps they were forced to do that after the war, Second World War, their past history and what went wrong was Germany. No one else in the present Europe has done so. I think Serbia has also to learn that it was not only Milosevic but the state structures who misbehaved in Kosovo and lost their right to govern Kosovo. And I can't see Serbia joining, with all due respect. I'm not in a decision-making position anymore. I'm a retired gentleman. But I can't see how Serbia can think of joining the EU if they can't live with their neighbor. And it means that the Kosovo has to be able to live with Serbia as well. And we have to get a peaceful development in Bosnia-Herzegovina. You can't bring these countries into EU with their problems.
Absolute delight to have you with us as ever, Martti.
It's always, David.
We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Back in March, some of you will remember, I travelled to Nicaragua to interview President Daniel Ortega, a rare interview with Daniel Ortega. And there was one question I asked him which was of particular interest in the country itself. Would you like to, or are you going to indeed, change the law here so that you could run again in the next election and not have to wait for 5 years before you can run again?
En la Constitución del 87 no había ninguna limitación.
In the Constitution of 1987, there was no limitation in terms of successive candidacies.
En el año 1995, con el gobierno,
it was in 1995 that the Constitution was actually amended under a right-wing government to prevent that. And we have felt strongly that we need to change our presidential system to a parliamentary system that would then not have these constraints for successive elections.
No hay inhibición para que se pueda estar dando la reelección.
Well, that answer caused a furore in Nicaragua. Even the newspaper cartoonists had their say. And this week, President Ortega got his wish. The country's Supreme Court ruled that Mr. Ortega can indeed run again for president next time. It's a decision which has alarmed opposition groups, but it's not clear what they can do about it. I'm joined now from Managua by Eduardo Montealegre, who is the man who ran for president against Daniel Ortega at the last election. Eduardo, good to have you with us. When he said those words to us back in March, did you expect this succession of events to happen?
Thank you, Sir David. Daniel Ortega is obsessed with being in power. And unfortunately, he is willing to go in any extremes to obtain and keep himself and maintain himself in power. What they did this week, part of the Supreme Court, only the Sandinistas magistrates in the Supreme Court, is totally illegal, is unacceptable, and violates every constitutional principle around the world. Because he was faced with a situation that the members of Congress in our National Assembly were not willing to change our constitution and allow him to run again, as is prohibited by the constitution, as he well explained in your interview. So what he did was he obtained an approval, a resolution from part of the Constitutional Court's magistrates, and said that the Article 147 was not applicable. In other words, that anybody could run 2, 3, or 4 times, which is not acceptable. It's totally illegal in Nicaragua.
And is there anything you can do about it, in fact?
Well, there are many things we can do. First, it was an illegal resolution from part of the court, so we need to have the other magistrates at the Supreme Court say that it is illegal. At the National Assembly, we can pass a law saying that it is illegal, and what we will have is a major conflict between different powers, two powers of state, the judiciary branch and the legislative branch.
And so, will that prevail? Because it seems as though it's almost a fait accompli now it's been done.
Well, that's what Ortega would like people to believe, or is leading people to believe, but it's not a fait accompli. What we need to do is keep fighting with the law in our hands, because the last thing we want is people going back on the streets and having an all-out battle in the streets and having bloodsheds, which is what we saw in the past. It's not a question that we are afraid of running against Ortega again, especially if we are working, as we are, in uniting the opposition. The problem is that he is violating the Constitution once again, and this time it's something that 80 to 85% of the population, including many of his supporters, are against re-election in this country. And if you want to change the Constitution, you have to go through the legal methods, which is to have the members of Congress pass a law that changes the Constitution, but not violating the law, going through extremes as he has done in a desperate way, in a desperate action through the Supreme Court constitutional chamber, which is not legal.
Would you be confident of beating him in another election, or is one of the reasons you're concerned that he's a strong candidate? Is he a strong candidate next time around?
He was a weak candidate last time, except that the opposition was divided, and he's a weaker candidate this time in case he prevails or we allow him to violate the Constitution, because he has been really not doing a good job. He's shown that he's not capable of running the country. He focuses on things that are not good for the people, and our economy is deteriorating much worse than the world economy is deteriorating. So what we believe is that we need first to respect the law, and second, if he is willing to respect the law, we will beat any candidate that he puts, because we are going to be united as opposition, because we believe that Ortega, or the movement that he has created with Chavez, with Evo Morales, with Correa, and he was trying to do with President Zelaya in Honduras, is really going against the people, utilizing democratic methods to get to power, and as soon as they get to power, they try to dismantle democracy and democratic institutions.
Yes, well, it certainly seems as though that's a growing trend, as you listed there, in South America, and we thank you very much indeed for being with us, Eduardo. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you. That's all we have time for this week. My thanks to all of our guests. Join me again in 7 days' time from now. Make a date for another Frost Over the World, including next week an interview with Ukrainian President, the brave figure of Viktor Yushchenko. Until then, goodbye for now.